Good evening and welcome to the class. I'm Nick Meisner,
And I'm Lisa, his wife.
and we want to welcome you to The Ready Life and this class, which is perhaps the most important class that we've ever done. It's called Preparation or Presumption. And you're going to get a biblical foundation for living a ready life in this unstable world where almost everyone is totally dependent on huge corporations and government entities.
Just a little background here. We've been into this for a long time. In fact, Nick and his family carved out a homestead deep in the mountains 25 years ago. It's completely off the power grid, and he's been living this way ever since, I don't know,
1999.
a little while. And we're also raising our kids with this lifestyle too.
And roughly 20 years ago, we were asked to share the practical country living experience we'd gained with Christians all over the nation. And since then, we've done country living seminars at literally hundreds of churches from coast to coast, as well as producing over 100 hours of practical training videos. And now we serve many thousands of folks on our YouTube channel. And lately, we've been working more closely with a select group of folks who are serious about becoming independent in our membership called the Ready Life Academy, with the training and support that they need to take action and get their family ready. From the very beginning, God's Word has provided our North Star, you might say, of principles that have guided us in this direction. And believe it or not, God has a lot to say about preparedness, and that's what we're going to share with you today.
That's right. All right, well, let's get rolling with preparation or presumption. Should Christians physically prepare for the end times?
I want to start out with a familiar verse from the Bible. It's Revelation 13, verses 16 and 17, and it says, "He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. And that no man might buy or sell."
It's profound.
Yeah. This is one of the enemy's great plans of attack, to force the entire world into submission to his agenda. In other words, do what I say, or else every resource is going to be cut off. So let's think about this for a moment. If you were the devil and this was your goal, to have absolute control, what would you do to make this no buy, no sell thing even more effective? Because a couple hundred years ago, most folks lived very differently than they do now. They were very independent for their basic necessities of life. And when I say basic necessities, I'm talking about, water, food, heat, or shelter, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, they grew and preserved most, if not all, of what they needed to eat. For water, they dropped a bucket down the well or had a spring or a creek. And for heat, they heated with wood or other natural fuels in the area. So this was kind of problematic from the devil's standpoint, because yes, a no buy, no sell situation would have been a real hardship on folks back then, for sure. But for most of them, it would not have been a survival situation, a matter of life or death. So going back to my earlier question, if you were the devil a couple hundred years ago and you looked at this situation, what would you do to dramatically improve your odds and make this no buy, no sell thing as insurmountable as possible, where everyone would have to comply or else they would die? How would you do that? Well, I think I'd want to have everyone have to purchase their basic necessities from huge corporations or government entities that could be easily controlled. Their water, their heat, and their food. I'd focus on those three things. And then all I'd have to do is cut off their financial resources. Their family would now be facing starvation, thirst, and freezing unless they complied with my requirements.
And friends, that's exactly what's happened, exactly what you just described. I mean, America used to be 80% rural, living in the country on a farm, and now it has completely flipped to where 80% of Americans are living in a city with every convenience known to man. But virtually all of these conveniences are dependent on just one single thing, electricity.
The power grid.
That's right.
Yep.
So as it stands right now, you can't get a drink of water, flush the toilet, heat your home, or even grab some lunch without somewhere, some way, electricity and a bunch of other things being needed from huge corporations or government entities. So what happens now if there's a no buy, no sell situation? It would be absolutely devastating.
It would. And folks, it's not just those who live in the city who would be affected. The electrical tether reaches even far out into the country, and even farmers and most homesteaders who are completely dependent on it for their most basic necessities like water and heat and the ability to cook or preserve their food. And friends, this is totally by design. Our enemy, the devil, has been planning this trap for a long, long time. And over the past 100 years or so, we've fallen for it, hook, line, and sinker. The problem, I just want to clear this up, the problem is not conveniences. They can be a great blessing. I mean, we use them too. The problem is when we become dependent on conveniences and have no other options for doing essential things. That's the problem. But it doesn't need to be this way, this dependence. Because you see, God has given us powerful principles on even these practical topics. Principles that would have kept us out of the mess that we're in if we'd followed them,
Yeah.
But these principles can also lead us to freedom again, living the life of noble independence that our forefathers cherished. I think my favorite verse on this topic is from Proverbs 21:31. It says, "The horse is prepared against the day of battle, but safety is of the Lord."
Wow, I love that. There are some powerful principles here.
Yeah.
Everything that can be done has been done to prepare for that battle. But once we've prepared for the battle and done all that we can, we must have faith and trust in the protection of the Lord. It comes down to a simple biblical principle of human effort plus divine power. This principle is demonstrated over and over again in scriptures through passages and stories. I really like the Old Testament story of Joshua and the Gibeonites.
Yeah, that one is good. That's found in Joshua chapter 10, and it's where Gibeon is surrounded by its enemies, and they send a message to Joshua asking for help. And Joshua inquires of the Lord what he should do. And God's response was, "And the Lord said to Joshua, 'Do not fear them, for I have delivered them into your hand, and not a man of them shall stand before you.'" And that was great news. And I can just picture Joshua rejoicing and racing around to his men and telling them the good news. And in their joy, they decide to pop some popcorn and bring out the lawn chairs and watch the fireworks, right?
No, not a chance. That is not what happened. If you read on in the story, Joshua and his men marched straight through the night, arrived the next morning, and commenced fighting. Then, as the day wore on, evening came and the sun started to go down on them, but they desperately needed more time. So the Lord held the sun in the sky through that night until they finished and won the battle. It was almost superhuman effort that they put forth, and all of this with the knowledge that they could not lose.
Wow. I love how this author puts it so succinctly. It says, Joshua had received the promise that God would surely overthrow these enemies of Israel, yet he put forth as earnest effort as though success depended upon the armies of Israel alone. He did all that human energy could do, and then he cried in faith for divine aid. And then we find this punchline: the secret of success is the union of divine power with human effort.
I love that. It also makes me think of a story from Paul when he was a prisoner on that ship that met with a horrible storm. It was during the time of year when terrible cyclones would blow through, and here they were throwing cargo overboard, trying to make it through this terrible storm, when Paul receives a message from the Lord, and he told everyone on board all about this message. He said, "And I urge you to take heart, for there will be no loss of life among you, but only of the ship. For there stood by me this night an angel of the God to whom I belong and whom I serve, saying, 'Do not be afraid, Paul. God has granted you all those who sail with you. Not a hair will fall from the head of any of you.'" This was awesome news. I can just picture the folks on the ship rejoicing, and someone says, "Hey, this is awesome. I think I'm going to go downstairs and finish reading my book."
No. That's not what happened. In fact, they lightened the ship numerous times. They worked hard to steer it toward an island. They skipped meals while they worked. And then, as the ship started falling apart, they swam with all their might toward the shore. Listen to this commentary. It says, passengers and crews, roused from their apathy and put forth all possible exertion to save their lives, there was much yet to be done. Every effort within their power must be put forth to avert destruction. And notice this, for God helps those only who help themselves.
Wow, that is powerful. It almost like you want to say it again. For God helps those only who help themselves.
That's right. So these stories are just illustrations of the great principle of combining our feeble but necessary human effort with God's unlimited power. And the Bible boils this principle down to something that we call faith and works. What does it profit, my brethren, if someone says he has faith but has not works? Can faith save him? Thus also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. Show me your faith without your works, and I will show you my faith how? By my works.
But it's also important to note that this storm that's coming is far bigger than any of us. And no amount of preparation on our part would be sufficient to see us through these end times that are coming.
Yeah, that's true.
So after we've done our part, the part that God has told us to do, and we reach the end of our rope, we don't have to fear, because God has promised to provide for us when we are unable to provide for ourselves.
So here's some promises that we can claim. For in the time of trouble, he shall hide me in his pavilion. In the secret place of his tabernacle, he shall hide me. He shall set me high upon a rock, and he shall dwell on high. His place of defense will be the fortress of rocks. Bread will be given him. His water will be sure. So there's no room for fear in the Christian's heart. We simply need to understand that what our part is to do, and then to do it to the best of our ability and trust God to take care of the rest. But if we claim God's promises of protection without doing the part that he's given us to do, that is what we call presumption. So what we're talking about here is preparation, not presumption.
And I think it's worth bearing to actually say what this means. Preparation is claiming God's promises and taking action, whereas presumption also claims God's promises, but twists them into an excuse for doing nothing.
Wow. Okay, that's that. Preparation claims God's promises and takes action, but presumption also claims God's promises and twists them into an excuse for doing nothing. Yeah.
Write that down. Yeah. That's really good.
Okay, so now we understand that we do have a part to play. So some well-meaning Christians see the storm coming and they start prepping with bottled water, canned food, a generator, some gas, whatever, and they think they're ready. I mean, bring it on, right?
Oh, dear.
But they're about as ready as this poor guy with his little umbrella and a tornado coming straight for him. This is how effective disaster preparedness is when compared with the storm that's coming. And I'm not downing disaster preparedness. It's a good first step. It's a good thing, but it is simply not anywhere near adequate for what's coming, for what we're talking about here. Mm-hmm. But God has a plan that's way more effective. We call it sustainable preparedness.
Yes.
And it's a 3-part process.
So step 1 is to recognize that the storm is coming, and guess what? Get out of its way. Common sense tells us to be in a rural location where we can provide for our basic necessities. It's kind of like when you're on a beach and you hear a tsunami warning. What do? You get out of there. You get out of its way.
Yep. Step 2 is you're going to go beyond just changing your zip code and you're going to change your lifestyle. Stop depending on huge corporations to prepare for you. God gave you the responsibility to provide for your family, so take that seriously.
Okay, and step 3 is my favorite. It is to prepare to share. This isn't just about me and mine. If you want to help others, we have to be ready because you can't give what you don't have.
That's right. So let's drill down into each of these for a moment. So step 1, the storm is coming, get out of its way. So God knows where judgments are going to be most heavily poured out. And it's interesting to note where Jesus told his disciples to go in the difficult times that they were facing. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? Then he goes on and details a number of things, talking about the destruction of Jerusalem and the end of time. And then as he gets toward the end of that description, he says, Then let them which be in Judea go where? Flee to the mountains.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So there are safer places to be in times of trouble. Another favorite verse of ours.
That's right. A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple press on and are punished. That's Proverbs 22, verse 3.
But when you think back to the story of God's people in the Old Testament, really, this has been God's plan for a long, long time. Here's a fascinating commentary on life in Bible times. It says, in God's plan for Israel, every family had a home on the land with sufficient ground for tilling. Thus were provided both the means and the incentive for a useful, industrious, and self-supporting life, and no devising of men has ever improved upon that plan. To the world's departure from it is owing, to a large degree, the poverty and wretchedness that exists today.
You know, we've been reading through the Bible together, and we came across this really fascinating verse about when the land of Canaan was divided up among the tribes. Listen to this. It says, Unto these the land shall be divided for inheritance according to the number of names. And in one of my Bibles, it has a little translator's note for this verse that says, Thus each man's portion would be 15 acres. Now, isn't that awesome? I realize that translators' notes are not necessarily inspired, but I found that really interesting since even now, 15 acres would be a really nice size of land for having space to produce your own needs.
That's right. But even in normal times, country living is a really good idea. Woe to those who join house to house. They add field to field till there is no place where they may dwell alone in the midst of the land. Interesting. So, let's take a look at step 2 in our process of sustainable preparedness. Step 2 is to go beyond just changing your zip code and to start living an independent lifestyle, right?
That's right. Yeah. So does the Bible have anything to say about this? Absolutely. God has given clear instructions on our role in providing for our families. There is so much in the scripture on this. What is our part to play in this operation of providing for our family's needs? First, Proverbs 6, verse 6 through 8 says, Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provideth her meat in the summer and gathereth her food in the harvest. So what is she gathering for? It's to get her through the winter until more food becomes available.
That's right. And another similar verse, the ants are a people not strong, yet they prepare their meat in the summer, or their food in the summer. Once again, what is she gathering for? To get her through the winter until more food becomes available.
Here's another one. Prepare thy work without, and make it fit for thyself in the field, and afterwards build thine house. So when you're searching for land, looking for the proper soil, water, and layout for agriculture is even more important than building your house or where the house is located. You can build or rebuild a house, but it's a lot harder to change the characteristics of the land that you are living on.
So true. And moreover, the profit of the earth is for all. The king himself is served by the field. So it doesn't matter how high and mighty you are, you still have to eat. And then we come to one of the strongest warnings that you're going to find in the Bible. And it's directed at folks who don't provide for their family's needs. This is from the Apostle Paul. But if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Wow.
That's heavy.
There's coming a time, friends, when simply bringing home a paycheck to pay the power bill and the water bill and the grocery store will not be providing for those of your household. So sometimes it helps to step back in time and see what life was like not very long ago. What was the normal practice regarding food back then? I like collecting books from the 1800s, and here's just one quote to demonstrate how they dealt with food. It says, each year we put up not less than 600 or 800 quarts of canned fruit. We have peaches, apricots, nectarines, grapes, plums, and tomatoes canned. And that was just the fruit that they were talking about.
Yes.
So this was their standard operating procedure. I recall talking to a fellow that lived through the Great Depression, and he told me that his family were poor farmers, and if they didn't put up at least 1,000 quarts of food each summer, they were not going to survive the next winter. That was just the way life was. And that's the way it has been up until the last 150 years or so.
Something has changed, but has something changed in God's word that's given us permission to start totally depending on big agribusiness for our existence? No. I really appreciate this warning taken from the little book, Country Living. I love that little book. Here it says, Christians should take their families away from the cities into the country where they can raise their own provisions, for in the future, the problem of buying and selling will be a very serious one. Do you see it there? There it is. Buying and selling. Back to Revelation.
Back to that first verse that we read.
That's exactly right. And what we're supposed to do? Take our families into the country where we can raise our own provisions.
This food issue is going to become even more and more serious as time goes on. And friends, God has warned us of what's coming, and he's told us how to prepare. And this principle that we've been looking at regarding food, this principle applies to other necessities of life also. Here's Jeremiah in the book of Lamentations, just weeping his heart out because of the disaster that's come upon his people. And here's what he says, Remember, O Lord, what has come upon us. Consider and behold our reproach. Our inheritance is turned to strangers, our houses to aliens. We are orphans and fatherless. Our mothers are as widows. Now notice this. We have drunken our water for money. Our wood is sold unto us. We have given the hand to the Egyptians and to the Assyrians to be satisfied with bread. Do you see the basic necessities of life there?
Yeah.
It's talking about water, heat, and food. And friends, he's not weeping here because they were just going to have to pay more money or something like that. He's weeping because his people were now dependent upon their enemies for basic necessities of life. And a thought hits me. How many of us are drinking our water for money? How many of us is our wood, our heat, sold unto us? How many of us are putting out our hand to the Egyptians and the Assyrians to be satisfied with bread? And Jeremiah is weeping, but we don't even realize it. We don't even think about it.
Yeah.
So clearly, we have work to do regarding our basic necessities, don't we?
Yes, for sure. But God's plan involves much more than just taking care of me and mine. We have a mission, a purpose to fulfill here in this world. And that is a sacred responsibility. So the third step is to prepare to share. When you implement God's plan, you are now in a position to help those around you during difficult times and be a part of the solution rather than part of the problem. During the Great Depression, there were long soup lines. But have you ever stopped to think about who was serving the soup? Someone had to have food from somewhere, and someone had to have enough food that they could share with all those standing in the soup lines. How can you help someone with a bowl of soup if you're standing in that soup line yourself?
Yeah.
I know you can and will be the one serving the soup.
So friends, we have another ark to build.
That's right.
This was faith in action. Noah didn't just preach to the people. He physically built that huge boat. And remember, Noah didn't build a canoe, did he?
No, he built a huge ark.
It was a big boat with room for plenty of people and animals and food and supplies, all of this. And God is calling us to build an ark too, so that we can not only perform the sacred duty of providing for our family, but also so we can help others who didn't have the opportunities that we've had. And all this is demonstrating our faith in God, that he knows what's coming and that he knows what is best for us even now, and that we believe him and we're willing to step out in faith and prepare for things unseen as yet. I think of this verse, but as the days of Noah were, so also shall the coming of the Son of Man be. And this, one of my favorite verses, by faith Noah, being warned of God of things not seen as yet, what did he do? He moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house, by the which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness which is by faith. So all this is demonstrating our faith in God, that he knows what's coming, he knows what's best for us even now, and that we believe him. We're willing to step out in faith and prepare for things unseen as yet, like Noah did. So have you been inspired that you have another ark to build, friends? I know we have, and this is what has motivated us on our journey toward independence. But the journey of 1,000 miles begins how?
With the very first step.
That's right. That's right. And the journey of 1,000 miles is eventually completed with what?
The very next step.
That's right.
You know, wherever you are on your journey, whether it's your first step or your next step, the time has come to take action. And the sooner you take action, the sooner you can start the learning process of trial and error that we all learn by. The sooner you take action, the more time you'll have to prepare. And the sooner you take action, the better your position will be for helping others in whatever crisis is ahead. And the sooner you take action, the sooner you'll be able to reach your goals and your dreams. That's why we believe the time has come to take that step forward, to make a start, whatever that might look like for you.
So you're going to want to look at these basic necessities, water, heat, and food. And power is often needed for some of the other basic necessities.
Yes.
So see if you can provide for each of these in your current location without being dependent on huge corporations or government entities. And if it's possible, then great. It's time to start whittling away at it one step at a time. Just pick one of those basic necessities and do something to get your family more prepared.
For water, it might be having a couple weeks of water stored, or it might be putting a hand pump on your well.
Or for heat, it might be as basic as a warm sleeping bag or as advanced as installing a wood stove.
And for your food, it might look like going to Walmart and spending $50 or $100 to pick up 2 weeks of shelf-stable food.
And yes, that can be done.
Absolutely, we did it.
Or it could be putting in a garden or learning how to can or dehydrate food.
Yes, whatever your next step looks like, the point is to do something.
And friends, if you find yourself in a location like this, where you can't provide for your basic needs, then you may need to have an open mind to relocating. And you can do it one step at a time.
That's right.
But I would encourage you to do what you can right now, even where you are.
You know, it might even be something as simple as growing a few things in pots right out on your balcony, or maybe bulking up your pantry.
Or setting up an emergency backpack that has what you need to keep your family alive for a few days. Do what you can now. And as you do what you can, God's going to open the door for you to do that which you could not otherwise do. That's how it works. That's just how it works. And I'd like to share something very personal that we haven't verbalized before publicly, but even we've been guilty of the paralysis of analysis. I mean, yes, we're way out in the country and we have an independent water source and off-grid solar power and food storage, and we grow some food and all that. But as with everyone, there are some areas that we really need to work on and improve. We've known this and we've been open about it, but we were waiting to start working on these needed improvements until the point where we had both the time and the money. And this winter, we've really been convicted that we need to heed the command that God gave to Moses at the Red Sea. He told Moses to go forward. So we decided that we needed to stop waiting for everything to line up perfectly, and we needed to do what we can with what we have. So we decided to liquidate some assets that we had previously been unwilling to let go of. And that was our way of showing the Lord that we're serious, that we mean business. So we're cashing out these assets and we're putting them into these improvements that we need to make to shore up our basic necessities better. And so we've got some big projects on our docket this year. But although we may be at a different place in this process than you right now, I still think that what we're doing may be very helpful to you because God is calling you to go forward, friends, and to get your feet wet in the Red Sea. He's calling you to do what you can right now. And perhaps he's also calling you to take off the blinders and do the things that you might think you cannot do right now.
You're kind of like us right now.
Exactly. So why don't you join us this year? There's never going to be a better time than now, friends. And here's the thing. If you're like us, then time and money are at a premium and you can't afford to be learning in the School of Hard Knocks.
Oh, that's so true.
I mean, we all learn a certain amount in that dreadful school, but it sure makes things go easier and quicker and less expensive when you can shorten the learning curve. So how do you do that?
Well, the very best way is to find an experienced mentor who's willing to take you under their wing, spend time with you, and show you the ropes. If you have access to such a treasure, then by all means, please take them up on that.
Yes.
But I also realize that not very many of us have a friend who is experienced or has the time and inclination to teach and mentor you. And if that is your situation, then your next best friend is going to be the Ready Life Academy. We know how frustrating it is to hunt all over creation looking for the info that we need. So you remember how hopeless it feels to be clueless and not even know where to start or where to look to even get started? That's a thing of the past with the Ready Life Academy, and here is why.
You're going to start out with our assessment tool that asks a series of questions and helps you discover your problem areas so you know where to focus and how to get started. Once you know what to focus on, you may need to learn a little bit about it so you can make wise decisions and avoid making bad purchases. So guess what? You're going to have access to our vast learning library to get you up to speed. This learning library contains all of our dozens of training videos and books. For instance, you're going to learn how to start a brand new garden in virgin soil, test a soil sample and have it analyzed, and how to interpret that soil analysis so you add exactly what your soil needs for optimum nutrition and health. You'll learn how to plant and care for your garden plants, how to compost, how to grow a winter garden, how to graft your own fruit trees, how to prune fruit trees, how to care for berries, dealing with pests, planting fruit trees, and more. Friends, you're going to have what you need to know about growing food at your fingertips in an easily viewable and easily searchable format.
And beyond just growing your food, you'll learn all about preserving and storing it, how to develop a solid food storage plan that your family works from rather than just stockpiling a bunch of disgusting emergency food. And you'll learn various methods of food preservation, like pressure canning, water bath canning, freezing, drying, culturing, and a whole lot more.
You'll learn how to deal with a fire in a rural area, how to cook with a wood cook stove, how to brush your stovepipe out, how to develop a spring into a water source, and how to turn a well into an independent water system that works regardless of the power grid, all about hand pumps. And also, you'll of course learn about off-grid power systems, including solar and hydropower.
Another area you'll learn a lot about is natural health remedies for dealing with health issues at home. And if you prefer learning in bite-sized pieces, we have our online course library that'll help you understand and design your own off-grid power system, or easily start your own garden plants from seed and set up a long-term food storage system based on the foods you actually eat, not some expensive, disgusting emergency food kit. You'll also be empowered to safely use natural remedies like hydrotherapy on your family, choose and install a reliable backup hand pump for your well, and set up a disaster preparedness system in your home in just 21 days.
But what about when you just have a quick question and you need an answer, or you need help finding where to look? Welcome to the Ready Life Academy Smart Search. This powerful search function catalogs every bit of our content library and enables you to ask conversational questions and get immediate answers that are succinct and based on our vast content library.
Yes, and what about when you get stuck and you just need a real human to answer your question or help you get off bottom dead center? You'll be able to do exactly that in the Ready Life Academy community area, where we collaborate together to help you get the answers or help that you need, so you don't have to figure this out on your own. And if you prefer talking it out on a call, you can join one of our monthly group coaching calls, and we'll walk through that question or problem together live.
Friends, if you don't want another year slipping through your fingers and you want your family to be as prepared as possible so that they aren't controlled when the powers that be make another power grab during the next crisis, then the time has come to stop talking and start doing. And there's no better way to make this year count than to join us in the Ready Life Academy.
Yes.
There's thousands of dollars of value in the Academy, all geared toward shortening this process, making it easier for you, and enabling you to be truly successful in your goals of preparing your family. But we know what it's like trying to do this on a budget. So we set our regular price at just $490 a year, which is an amazing value. But right now, during this class, we're running a huge discount where you'll be able to enroll in the Academy for less than the cost of taking your family to a mediocre restaurant once a month. So for less than $25 a month, you'll be able to get clarity on what your problem areas are, learn how to fix them, get your questions answered, and get help when you run into a roadblock. It's billed annually at $297 a year, but this would work out to be less than $25 a month. So just click on the button, or you can visit thereadylife.com/special to accelerate your journey to independence.
Oh, and by the way, we stand behind our Academy. If you aren't satisfied with the experience you gain in the Ready Life Academy, we will gladly refund every penny within the first 30 days. You have our word on that. The reason we're so confident is that we've had so many customers over the years who've been empowered to get results. I could share so many, but I'll just share one that Roseanne, a member of our Ready Life Academy, posted just recently when we were doing a class. Here's the screenshot of it. She said, "We are members, most definitely worth it. It would take you forever to find all this info. If you can afford it, do it."
Thank you, Roseanne. We appreciate that.
Yes.
So if you can't tell, our passion is helping others reclaim their noble independence so we can not only provide for our family when times get tough, but so we can all also, be a help and a blessing to others. So I want to encourage you to join us this year in taking bold action. Step outside of your comfort zone, as that's often the only place where things get done.
Yeah.
And so if necessary, liquidate some resources that you can part with and take your next step, however small it might be, and whatever it might look like. The time has come, friends, to take action, and there's never going to be a better time than now. So let's do this thing together. And now we'll stick around in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer questions that you might have. If you posted a while ago and you didn't get a reply, feel free to post your question again so we don't miss
please.
it. And, thanks so much for joining us in this class. And we look forward to serving you in whatever way we can. And take care, and many blessings to each of you.